Don't you dare slack off saying you're sick, you useless wife. When you're at your parents' house, you better clean and cook and work.
My mother-in-law, Melissa, yelled at me even though I had a fever. Stephen was grinning like an idiot while watching TV.
If you have something to say, then say it,
Melissa said to me when she noticed my glare. All right then. Let me speak my mind without holding back. My name is Rachel. I'm a 28-year-old working mother. It's been a year since I married Stephen, and I'm already regretting this marriage in many ways. What am I regretting, you ask? Well, first of all, it's how Stephen takes his work lightly. Before we got married, he never worked overtime or went out drinking, so I thought he was the type to prioritize family. But after getting married, I realized that Stephen was just a lazy bum. He doesn't work overtime simply because he doesn't want to work. No matter how busy it gets or how much work piles up, he doesn't care if clients are troubled. He goes home when he wants to go home. Sure, I get it if the company is terrible and doesn't pay overtime or has employees working way beyond regular hours, but Stephen's company is a great one that puts their employees' well-being first. Of course, they properly pay for overtime. You can take paid leave too. When work piles up, everyone pitches in and helps each other out. Above all, in this day and age, overworking is frowned upon, so there's hardly any overtime. But still, work does get busy depending on the time of year, and there are times when you just have to do it. I work too, so I think it's fine to work a reasonable amount of overtime. But seeing Stephen, who absolutely refuses to ever do overtime, I guess my way of thinking is old-fashioned. However, I still can't help but feel uncomfortable. It's because Stephen says things like, "Working overtime means wasting your time. It'll trouble the client? Not my problem. I don't get my coworkers who work overtime at all, but well, as long as they're making money for my paycheck, it's fine by me." Disparaging clients and coworkers. He also says, "If you work hard, you lose. The key is to slack off and take it easy as much as possible." I secretly felt disgusted when I heard Stephen saying that. I'm not saying he needs to work like crazy. I just hate how he looks down on and laughs at people who are trying their best. I'm the type to work overtime if needed, so I started to feel like we weren't really compatible. Well, even so, I think it's normal for a married couple to have different values. We've walked different paths in life, so it would be rare for us to have the exact same way of thinking. However, I want him to stop saying things to me like, "You just don't get it." Stephen always thinks he's in the right. He wasn't like this before we got married, but I guess when you get married, people change, or rather, their true colors start to show. Even with something like cleaning, he'll pick up dust with his finger and ask, "What's this? Are you Cinderella's stepmother?" I think to myself, when I'm exhausted from work but still prepare dinner, he'll say things like,
"Put more time and effort into making it. This carrot hasn't even absorbed any flavor."
When he said that, I thought about dousing him in soy sauce and simmering him. No, I'm totally serious. I'm an adult, so I won't actually do it, but still. Before we got married, he used to say,
"I don't care what the food tastes like as long as I can eat it. I'm grateful just to have you cook for me."
I guess there's no need to spoil a woman who's already yours. Well, I could go on and on about his flaws. I'm sure I have many flaws too, and I think I've changed quite a bit from before we got married to now. Before we got married, how do I put it? Yeah, I have a past that even Stephen doesn't know about. And I'm sure Stephen has his own complaints about me too. That's just how it is, and working through those differences is what being a married couple is about. If you say that's impossible and that I shouldn't have gotten married in the first place, well, I have no rebuttal. But above all, there's one flaw of Stephen's that I cannot forgive. And that's Melissa's existence. Yes, for wives all around the world, mothers-in-law can be the toughest adversary in a marriage. Of course, there are also plenty of sons-wife and mother-in-law relationships that get along great, but unfortunately, ours isn't one of them. Melissa is just so over the top. Just yesterday, on my precious day off, Melissa barged in without any warning. I was all dressed up, about to go shopping, but I froze at the entrance. And of course, I wasn't able to go out. We've only been married a year. I don't have the guts yet to stand up to Melissa. At work, I can handle demanding clients, but when it comes to the demanding client called Melissa, a wife just can't handle it. By the way, our demanding client is like the stereotypical mother-in-law from the old days. Let me give you a taste of what Melissa was like yesterday. First, she showed up unannounced and glared at me.
I came all the way here and you're planning to go out?
Then Stephen chimes in. Yeah, you're right. Since Mom came to visit, let's not go out. When I reacted with a surprised.
What?
Stephen made a face like he was shocked. As if to say, did I say something weird? That's right, Stephen is such a kind boy who thinks of his mother. Melissa said with a triumphant look on her face. What is with this mother and son duo? Furthermore, when I gave up and served coffee, she said.
What is this coffee? The convenience store coffee I just bought tastes better than this.
And threw out the coffee I made to chug down bottled coffee. But when Stephen brought out the coffee I made.
Oh my, this is delicious. As expected, coffee served by my son is truly special.
She went. How much does the taste change just from who brings it? Is it magic? Can your son magically change the taste? On top of that, Melissa said. Look at this room, it's such a mess. A useless wife who can't even clean. And started tidying things up on her own. But when Stephen said,
Mom, I put things where I can find them, it's not a mess.
Melissa stopped cleaning and said, well, of course. I sensed there was some kind of method to how things were placed. I wonder what kind of method she sensed in the snack crumbs on the floor and the beer cans Stephen had scattered all over the living room table. And when I made a meal, the classic line,
you expect me to eat this?
Comes out. Poor Stephen, having to eat this every day. I'll take you to eat something delicious. She fake cried, and the two of them went out to eat. You make something then. Well, what do you all think? Did you enjoy my sharp retorts to this mother-son duo? No, that's not it. I wonder what you thought after seeing this abnormal parent-child relationship. Melissa, who can't let go of her son. Stephen, who can't become independent from his parent. By the way, Stephen is the kind of man who says,
a man is forever an elementary school boy.
And walks around the house in just his underwear. Do elementary school boys walk around in just their underwear? Well, this is a common marriage story, isn't it? The countless things you don't see until you get married, it's so overwhelming, I'm confused. I'm sure many people wonder what's so good about Stephen. I myself have lost sight of Stephen's good points. However, as they say, don't feed a fed horse, or perhaps it's the strategic use of carrot and stick. My husband is occasionally kind. Thanks for everything. I bought some cake, so have some. He'll show consideration like this, so I can't bring myself to hate him. I'm aware that I'm simple-minded. But anyone would be happy to be treated kindly, right? So even though there are many things I dislike, I'm sticking with this marriage because I swore to God that I would spend my life with this man. But once you've been married for over a year, the reality is that the sweetness and kindness of newlyweds is gone. Recently, Stephen has been going out to have fun by himself more often, leaving me behind. He does this even when I'm not feeling well. He used to worry and take care of me when I caught a cold, but now he says kind words like, "You don't feel well? I see, rest up and sleep well." But then follows it with terrible words like,
"I have plans with my friends, so I'm heading out. I don't need dinner. See ya."
It's one thing to listen and go out, but what do you mean you don't need dinner? If you didn't have plans to go out, were you going to make me, who's not feeling well, cook dinner? What about my dinner in the first place? The rice cooker can make porridge with the push of a button? Oh, is that so? It's so convenient it brings me to tears. These days, there are many smart home devices that can talk about various things. I wish my oven would say something like,
"Your oatmeal is ready. Please enjoy it slowly and have a good night's rest."
But it doesn't say that. I guess our smart home is still not living in the future. I have quite heavy periods, which is typical for women, and even if it's not a cold, I get sick every month. So Stephen has probably gotten used to it and doesn't worry about me much anymore. But is it too much to ask for at least a word like, "Are you okay?" Before I knew it, our married life had reached its second year, and Stephen had completely started to neglect me.
"I'm going to watch the Yankees game with my college buddies today." "What? You're going out to have fun again?"
Stephen goes out with his friends every time he has a day off. And that's not all.
"My mom is coming over, so please take care of her."
He dumps the responsibility of dealing with his mother's visit on me. Of course, Melissa's surprise visits are still the same as always. Even when Melissa comes over just as Stephen is about to leave, he says,
"Rachel is here, so have a nice time and enjoy some coffee together."
And leaves. He used to be so happy about his mother's visits before. It seems he's totally hooked on the fun of hanging out with his friends, or rather, he's gone back to his single lifestyle. Melissa also seems dissatisfied with Stephen going out, and on such occasions, she makes twice as many snide remarks as usual.
"Rachel, isn't it because you have such a funny face that Stephen is getting tired of you and going out?"
What the heck is that supposed to mean? I'd rather you call me ugly instead. That would be better for my mental health. What do you mean by a funny face? Lately, I've been getting stronger, so I say to her, "Oh, come on, Melissa.
Isn't it because your eyebrows are so funny that Stephen is leaving?" "Oh my, Rachel, how awful of you to say that."
You too, Melissa." The mysterious laughter and sparks have become a daily occurrence. I want to stand Stephen between those sparks and give him an explosion head like a failed experiment skit. Why do husbands always run away from the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict? Melissa shows up suddenly, so I think it would be fine to skip the in-laws' house visits twice a year, at Christmas and in the summer, but apparently that's not possible. Stephen's rarely seen father-in-law, Jason, is also at his parents' house, and it's an opportunity to meet his brother-in-law Charles's family. So I understand it can't be helped. I understand, but I wish they would give me a break at least when I'm not feeling well. The dreaded family gathering was upon us, and just as I was set to head to my parents' house tomorrow, a high fever struck me. "I have a fever, so could you go alone tomorrow?" I asked Stephen. "Why?" He replied. I thought he meant, "If you're going alone, I'm not going either." But then he said,
"A little fever is no big deal. Let's go together."
I can't believe how lightly he's taking this, suggesting we go together.
No, in this day and age, you can't take a high fever lightly. Charles has young children, so it would actually be a bother for them. Oh, if that's the case, it's fine. Charles said his plans changed and they'll visit another time. What?
Charles's family lives far away. On the other hand, our house is close enough for Melissa to drop by unannounced.
Then why don't we go when Charles and his family come?
When Charles's family is there, Melissa's harassment towards me disappears. It still happens a bit, but it's more bearable, and I've managed to get through it by teaming up with my sister-in-law. Going alone is too much of a hurdle. But Stephen doesn't notice my feelings, nor does he have any compassion for my poor physical condition.
What are you saying? Mom is really looking forward to us coming. When Charles and the others visit, we can go then too, so let's just go by ourselves this time.
Why are you so eager to go to your parents' house? And what is Melissa even looking forward to? She's always barging into our house unannounced, so what's there to look forward to? I don't get it.
Anyway, I can't do the impossible. I feel like I'm going to throw up.
As I tried to lie down, Stephen's chop struck the back of my head. What the hell?
Illness comes from the mind. What? Listen, right now, you're convincing yourself that you feel awful because you have a fever. You can overcome that with willpower. Come on, try telling yourself, I'm fine, I'm fine. Go on. Huh? No, it's impossible. This fever won't go down with willpower. Put your fighting spirit into it. Are you stupid?
In the end, the argument with Stephen continued, and I couldn't get any rest. The fever didn't go down, but up. I kept insisting it was impossible, but Stephen forced me, barely conscious, into the car. In the end, he picked me up bodily. The least he could do was carry me like a princess, but that's not the issue here.
I feel sick.
I was in a condition where I seriously felt like throwing up within 5 seconds, but I desperately endured it so as not to vomit in the car. 10 minutes later, as soon as the car arrived at my in-laws' house, I rushed inside, brushing off greetings, and dashed to the bathroom.
Wow, were you that excited?
Those were Stephen's words directed at me as I emerged from the bathroom, completely drained. I wanted to drive my imaginary left straight punch into his face. But I didn't even have the energy for that in my terrible condition. Anyway, I just wanted to get the greetings over with quickly and call a taxi to go home. As I was thinking that, my brother-in-law Jason asked, "Are you okay?" with a worried look. Jason is always overshadowed by the eccentric personalities of Melissa and Stephen, but unlike them, he's a very kind person. Noticing how pale I looked, he asked with concern in his voice, "You'll need to rehydrate after throwing up. Here, this sports drink is unopened, have it." Saying that, he held out a bottle of sports drink to me. Right now, I want to worship Jason like a god. But just as I was about to drink it, the bottle was suddenly snatched away from the side. Startled, I looked over to see Melissa glaring at me, standing with her arms akimbo.
Melissa?
Before I could even ask what was going on.
Don't be a wimp, she yelled at me.
Before I could react, Melissa put the bottle away.
Listen up. When a daughter-in-law comes to her mother-in-law's house, there are certain things she has to do. What? Huh?
Certain things to do? I tilted my head in confusion, and Melissa pointed a finger sharply towards the bathroom.
First, clean the bathroom. You just barged in and used it without permission. Clean it now. What? But I did ask Jason before going in. Jason isn't the only one living in this house. It's basic manners to ask me too.
I'm sorry. Even if I told her I couldn't talk much or it might leak out, she probably wouldn't listen. But despite thinking cleaning the bathroom would be tough in my condition, Melissa's mouth wouldn't stop.
And after cleaning the bathroom, prepare the meal too.
What?
But I'm really not feeling well today. Not feeling well, my foot. Keep that ugly face to yourself.
What is she even saying? Sorry for having an ugly sick face.
And a daughter-in-law isn't a guest. Hurry up and at least get the coffee ready. Trying to slack off and do nothing. What a useless wife. Get moving and fulfill your wifely duties.
But I...
Get to work, you idiot daughter-in-law.
Melissa's shout rang out. Feeling faint from the fever, her loud voice reverberated in my aching head. Glancing to the side, I saw Stephen already lying on the living room couch watching TV. Hey Stephen, I really don't feel well, so... I tried to ask for help, but... Huh?
Oh, I have a fever of 98 degrees Fahrenheit and my head hurts from using too much hair gel, but I'm fine, totally fine. You're okay too. I told you illness comes from the mind, right?
Okay, do your best. He was completely unreliable. 98 degrees Fahrenheit is a normal temperature, you know. What's with using too much hair gel? Just as I was thinking I was reaching my limit in various ways, Melissa started screeching again.
Hey, useless daughter-in-law, are you listening? Hurry and make the coffee and clean. And go shopping too. 25 pounds of rice, you got that.
25 pounds for a couple, won't it go bad before you finish it? The moment I thought that, I heard a small snap in the corner of my mind. I let out a deep, deep sigh. Without responding to Melissa's shouting, I glared at her while holding my aching head. When I directed a disgruntled look at her, Melissa glared right back, not backing down.
What? You're gonna glare at your mother-in-law while ignoring what a lousy wife you are? How dare you? If you have something to say it clearly.
She probably thinks I won't talk back to her like always. But there's a limit to everything. And right now, I've reached that limit. Well then, I said quietly. Perhaps because of my anger, my headache eased a little as I raised my face.
Well then, allow me to speak my mind without holding back.
Is that all right?
Humph. Daughters-in-law these days are so full of themselves. What's this allow me to speak nonsense? A wife should just shut up and do as she's told. You're the one who told me to say it clearly, didn't you? Eek!
When I yelled at her for being so contradictory, Melissa suddenly sank to the floor on her bottom from the shock. I stomped my foot in front of her and stood with my hands on my hips. I even crossed my arms and looked down at Melissa for good measure.
Rachel? What are you? You said if I have something to say, I should say it clearly, right?
I never.
You said it, didn't you? Yes, I said it.
When I glared at her, refusing to let her conveniently forget her own words, Melissa sat up straight and replied.
I may endure it now, but when I was younger, I was quite the sharp-tongued woman who spoke her mind. What?
Melissa looked shocked at the sudden revelation. Undeterred, I continued speaking.
I've never told Stephen this, but I also have experience being part of a delinquent group in my teenage years. A delinquent group?
Oh, here's a photo as proof. I pulled out a photo from my pocket. In it were delinquent teenagers sitting on the road, glaring provocatively at the camera. And in the center was one particularly scary-looking girl. A woman with a face that made you think she definitely made a few people disappear.
Who's this dangerous-looking person?
Oh, that's me. When Melissa pointed at that very woman and asked, I told her it was me, and her finger trembled.
Wait, this is you, Rachel?
Yes, it's me.
How many people did you make disappear?
How many do you think? Of course I never actually did something like that. But I figured it was better to stay silent for now, and Melissa's face twitched.
Shall I give you a face massage? No thanks.
Melissa, now aware of my embarrassing memories and past, frantically shook her head. Now that the revelations are out of the way, shall we have a talk?
Since you've seen a photo like this, I think I'll go back to my old self for a bit. What? I have a mountain of things I want to say to you, Melissa. A mountain? Not just a mountain the size of nearby hiking trails, but one that rivals the entire Appalachian Mountains of America. That much. But since I'm not feeling well, I won't say everything.
I see. Melissa showed a clearly relieved expression at my words. But it's too early to be relieved.
So, I'll say it with some parts omitted. First, listen to what people say. Huh? I said I'm not feeling well, didn't I? Listen to what people say. What?
When I deliberately used a delinquent-like tone, Melissa's face turned blue before my eyes.
Then you shouldn't have come. Your son dragged me here against my will. Eek!
I smoothly shifted my gaze to the living room. There, peeking out from behind the sofa with just his eyes, was Stephen staring at us. I noticed he's been staring since the part about my past earlier. So I deliberately used a forceful tone.
You, come over here too!
And beckoned to Stephen.
Huh, me? I'm a bit busy right now. Come here. Yes, I'll be right there.
I pointed to the spot next to Melissa, brooking no refusal, and Stephen quickly came over and sat down next to Melissa. Still standing with my arms crossed, I said to Stephen,
What's your deal?
Huh? What do you mean?
I told you yesterday that I have a fever and I'm not feeling well, didn't I? And what, you say it's fine? Why do you get to decide my condition is fine? Are you a doctor?
No, I'm just a humble company employee. That's right. You're an employee. Yes, that's right.
So? Huh? You have a temperature of 98 degrees Fahrenheit and a headache from using too much hairstyling product? Oh, I'm fine now. Totally fine. Huh, so you're fine, but you're laughing while watching your sick wife about to be worked to the bone by Melissa? Oh, shall I go shopping?
Stay here.
Yes, ma'am.
As Stephen started to get up, I pointed my chin at the floor, telling him not to run away, and he sat back down.
Melissa! Yes!
Melissa, who was somehow already sitting, straightened her back and replied when I glared at her again. It seems she realizes the situation is bad. But even if she realizes now, it's too late.
You said to speak my mind without holding back, so I'll say it. Your son's contract is terminated as of today. What?
Melissa tilted her head, not understanding what I meant. Stephen also tilted his head.
Huh?
Looking puzzled. So I spelled it out for them.
I've reached my limit.
No, I've passed it.
As of today, the contract is terminated. I want to end the contract called marriage. What?
The one who cried out in surprise at my words was Stephen.
You mean divorce?
That's right.
No. I'll change, I swear. I'll be kinder, just spare me the divorce.
Impossible.
A person's personality doesn't change that easily.
When I gave him a cold look, Stephen turned pale. Even if he understands the situation now, it's too late.
Oh, right. Your contract with the company is terminated too. What?
I'll let Dad know.
A man who can't cherish his wife can't be expected to do his job either.
As I said that, Stephen's face went from pale to ashen. That's right, Stephen worked at the company my father runs. I met Stephen when he transferred to my father's company. Stephen, who bounced from job to job and never lasted long, came crying to my father that he couldn't find another job. My kind-hearted father readily agreed to hire him. That's how it started. However, his reputation among the other employees wasn't great, and it was by chance that I ended up covering for the incompetent Stephen. In other words, the only reason the inept Stephen was able to keep working was because of me. The only reason my father kept employing Stephen was because he was my husband. Otherwise, he would have been fired long ago.
What? But that's a real problem for me.
Why?
Finding a new job at another company at this point.
Stephen's voice gradually grew quieter.
That's right. You came to our company struggling because you couldn't find a new job, didn't you?
That's true. So what?
Huh?
For a moment, Stephen felt relieved, thinking he might avoid contract termination, in other words being fired, but then his face froze at my cold voice and eyes.
Our company isn't a charity. Dad isn't kind-hearted enough to keep employing someone who can't even do the bare minimum. But up until now, you had my support. You really haven't noticed anything, have you? Your work was below even part-time level, just simple assisting. I worked extra to cover for you, that's why they overlooked it.
As I said at the start, Stephen is the type who doesn't work overtime, who thinks you lose if you work hard. Not only that, he's the type to sneer at employees who voluntarily work overtime and put in effort, calling them foolish. Even when everyone went home, Dad and I often worked overtime. Stephen would laugh at us for that. He wouldn't say it when Dad and I were working overtime, but I felt disgusted by his condescending remarks when other employees worked late. If you work hard, you lose.
The key is how much you can slack off.
I can't believe he had the nerve to say that in front of me, the CEO's daughter. He was probably confident I wouldn't tell Dad, but there's no way I could say something like that. Because I know Dad would be furious. But I no longer have any obligation to cover for Stephen.
I'll be reporting all your remarks up until now to Dad. What? I'll consult with a lawyer and proceed with termination procedures. Wait a minute, Rachel. I was wrong. Your face was? Huh? You're saying your face was wrong? What the hell? That's way too rude of you.
Hear that, Melissa? I turned the conversation to Melissa, who had been blankly watching my exchange with Stephen. Melissa hastily cried out.
What?
In surprise.
Your son is saying it's rude to badmouth someone's face, you know?
I suppose so.
Melissa, you called my face funny, didn't you?
That was a compliment.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure that was an insult.
Anyway, I have no intention of ruining my life by being involved with this kind of mother and son. I'll be terminating the contract and divorcing. Wait, Rachel! I said divorce, and you're also being fired. Rachel!
Stephen tried to cling to me. He was being so annoyingly persistent that I glared at him with the same face as in my delinquent days photo, the kind of face that looks like it might make someone disappear, and said,
Huh?
He turned pale and fell silent. I left my in-laws' house just like that.
Ah, that felt great.
I felt refreshed, like take that. It's no good to hold things in after all, you have to say what's on your mind. I stretched with a groan and realized. At some point, my headache had completely subsided. After that, I consulted with Dad, he introduced me to a lawyer, and I entered into divorce negotiations. The divorce went through without issue. As for Stephen's termination, I consulted with the lawyer again. They said it was with just cause, so the firing also went through. And so, Stephen became unemployed. Since he had been living in a condominium under Dad's name, Stephen returned to his parents' home. But then, this happened. Right after Stephen left, I got a phone call. Thinking he forgot something and feeling annoyed, I answered, and he said,
"Let me live there with you."
"What's going on?" I asked, and apparently, he had been kicked out of his parents' house. "Huh? Didn't they say you could come back?" Melissa had been angry, telling him, "There's no need to stay married to such a strict wife. Hurry up and divorce her and come back home," when we parted ways, according to Stephen. And yet, why in the world? Apparently Mom was told to divorce by Dad and got kicked out too.
What?
It seems Jason's anger finally exploded at Melissa's selfish behavior. Hearing about our divorce, he decided to do the same. Since the house belonged to Jason, Melissa ended up being kicked out. Stephen was also kicked out, being told,
"No foolish son is allowed in this house."
After begging and pleading, Stephen was allowed to stay at his parents' place that day, but later found a new place with Melissa and moved. And guess what? It was a rundown apartment. Since the ex-in-laws divided their joint assets in the divorce, Melissa should have received a lump sum of money. And yet, somehow they're already out of money, it seems. How do I know about this aftermath, you ask? Well, Stephen called me again and said,
"Lend me some money."
Apparently Melissa mistook getting a lump sum from the divorce for becoming rich. Originally they had found a decent apartment, but before moving, Melissa went on a mysterious cross-country trip and a shopping spree, quickly squandering it all. All the money is gone, it seems. There are people like that, right? The type who gets a windfall and spends it without thinking about the future. Melissa is exactly that. Melissa's money is all gone. Stephen doesn't have much money either. By the way, I received some compensation too, though a paltry sum. We were only married for less than 2 years, so there was practically no joint marital assets. With Stephen and Melissa having no money, the only place they could afford was an old apartment. And Stephen had the nerve to demand money from me. I could hear Melissa's voice on the other end of the phone too.
"Rachel, I was wrong. I'll apologize, so please wire me some money right now."
No way.
How cold-hearted. I'm in trouble here.
I have a funny face, so I can't wire you money. Wah. Melissa was speechless on the other end. I'm the type to hold a grudge, you see.
Isn't it great that you get to live with your beloved son, just the two of you? What's great about it? I have no use for an unemployed son who doesn't work at all. Oh my. Well, do your best to endure until you're old enough to collect your pension. Wah. Wait a minute, seriously, help.
Hey Rachel, help us out. Help us. As Melissa and Stephen desperately shouted. Oh, bad reception. I told that overused lie and hung up. I blocked their numbers right away. I rarely use that setting, but I set it up in the blink of an eye. After that, contact from Stephen and Melissa ceased. But I still get information from mutual acquaintances and Jason. Apparently, Stephen can't find a new job at all and has seriously become unemployed. As for Melissa, she started a part-time job, but since she was a housewife for so long, work isn't going as smoothly as she'd like. And the two of them fight almost every day, I hear. Since Jason was also getting frequent SOS calls, I taught him how to block numbers and he thanked me. And so, peace finally arrived. A few years later, in my 30s, just as I thought I might stay single for life, I met a great match and remarried. My new husband is very kind and thoughtful, and my in-laws are wonderful people too. My husband is dedicated to his work, but he also cherishes our family.
Matthew, thank you for everything, every day.
Thank you too, Rachel. Even as a married couple, we mustn't forget to appreciate each other. Between us laughing together, the proof of our happiness, our baby let out a giggle.